that fair enough? Great. Okay. I'm very delighted now to be joined here in the Agriland stand at Ploughing 2025 by President of the ICMSA, Denis Drennan. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great ploughing this year so far, and we've talked a lot, and one of the common themes that has come out is just generational renewal. And I'm sorry, Denis, if you can't hear me, maybe everyone just keep down the voices a little bit in the audience, please. Just in terms of generational renewal, I mean, we've spoken to so many farmers. You previously spoke to us, you had a young farmer yourself in with you, Niall Heffernan, and just talking about the issues and challenges. The whole theme of Agriland's coverage is farming for the future and what that looks like and what that means. And you can see with the crowds that come to ploughing, so many people are interested in agriculture and farming from the younger generation. But are we very concerned now that there won't be jobs for those young people who are interested in farming?
Well, I don't think it's a case that there won't be jobs. I just think that if agriculture wants to attract the young people that it needs to, we've gone to a stage, we've a third of people over retirement age who are still farming, and we've less than 5% below 35 years of age. And for any sector, that's alarm bells have to go off, and we need to do something to encourage young people into farming. And I think until we get to a stage that agriculture can attract or provide a comparable income to other sectors, young people, look at it, it's a success story for the country. It's a hugely successful country at the moment. We've opportunities once children leave school or college, or young adults as I should call them, leave college. The world is their oyster, the country even is their oyster. Like 40 years ago, if you're from a farming background, you had two choices probably, farm or emigrate. Now you have so many choices. So we need to concentrate on what are the obstacles that are standing in the way of our young people entering the sector, and what can we do about those. It's something that we in ICMSA, I suppose, we've had our finger on the pulse of this for the last 3 or 4 years. We've formed our own Young Farmer Forum, which is a forum that gathers every couple of months for all our members that are under 40 years of age. And thankfully, we were well prepared when the Generation Renewal Commission was formed and wanted to develop a report. We actually went to that commission back in February with 34 proposals, and they weren't 34 proposals that we had come up with. There were 34 proposals that had been developed by the Young Farmer Forum themselves in a thinking that they had, and we asked them to go through the 10 main points of policy that could be changed to encourage young people into farming. And we presented those to the Generation Renewal Commission, and we're actually disappointed. Some of the issues were within the control of our own government and taxation system, and we were delighted to hear that it was going to be presented to the Minister before the end of June. We said that's perfect timing so that it would be in time to make budgetary changes in this year's budget, and then it was delayed and delayed and delayed, and it's only come out this week, and I think it's too late for this year's budget. And that's a pity, because we can't wait until 2028 to start encouraging people into young people into farming. The average age of a farmer is going to be gone over 60 by that stage. So we don't have time to play around with it, so we need to get working on it straight away.
And the recommendations in the Generational Renewal report published by the Minister, there are things in relation to taxation there. There's things in relation to pensions. There's things in relation to maybe a payment of 25,000 for a young entrant coming in, or on the other end of the scale, 25,000 on the transfer of a farm to an older farmer. And then there was the education aspect of it. They were suggesting that a land database be established. They were suggesting that the Teagasc should have its own dedicated generational renewal programme. What would you feel about those kind of recommendations?
Well, I suppose the overwhelming thing that came out from our Young Farmer Forum, and I said that's a couple of hundred young farmers who are under 40, was income volatility. They're all young people, and whether you're an accountant, a teacher, a doctor, a dentist, a solicitor, a construction worker, if you're in your 20s and 30s, you have to be looking at how do I get on the housing ladder. And for a young person who's entering farming, with the volatility that's in every sector of farming, it's impossible to go to a bank and say, I need a mortgage to build or buy a house without certainty of income. So we have been at this for 12 years now with every Minister of Finance and Department of Finance. We've had some very constructive meetings with the Department of Finance as late as last week trying to bring in an income volatility tool that will allow you to put away some money in the good year and draw it down on the bad year. And that's what our young farmers are looking for. They want to be able to stabilise their income, that when they go to the bank manager looking for a mortgage, that they're,
But there doesn't seem to be a measure like that on the way.
Well, you see, they've turned it down on a number of regions, and some of those reasons were some of the, I suppose, measures that were recommended by other organisations, not ourselves. There were some issues that the co-ops and the marts wanted to hold on to the money. We said no, under no circumstances. Whoever has the money has to be regulated by the financial regulator. And I mean, if you look at where an income volatility tool is actually working successfully, like we've income averaging in this country, but you have to be farming for at least 5 years before you can avail of income averaging. Where if you look at Australia, where they have a farm management deposit scheme, in Ireland we have less than 5% of farmers availing of income averaging. In Australia, where they have a farm management deposit scheme, there's 41% of farmers availing of it. So it's obviously far more suitable for the needs of farmers in Australia, so we think it should be included here.
And what about in terms of the nitrates derogation? We don't need to go over again all of the reasons that we feel it'll have a very significant detrimental effect on the dairy industry in this country. Yep. They have long been, I suppose, expressed and very vociferously by many farm organisations, including yourself. But tomorrow the EU Nitrates Committee will meet and they will be discussing it. We've had a report from the EPA, an indicative report, that 16% increase in nitrogen concentrations at their test sites across the country. Like we have to kind of spit it out sometimes, say that's not a good look, especially when we're trying to retain a derogation. So how difficult is it now for young farmers, particularly young couples might be in dairying or any other of the sectors, going to the bank for a mortgage and saying, I'll be able to pay back this mortgage over 25, 30 years, but they're like, but I can't give you an exact income that I will have because I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. But that's the second biggest concern that young people have, is uncertainty. I mean, you know, a young person takes over a farm, they're trying to put a business plan together. They obviously want to invest in the farm. If you're going to the bank for investment or wherever you're going for your finances for your investment, they're not going to accept a year or two of a plan. You're probably looking at 10 to 15-year plan minimum. But like, how can you do that in a scenario where you have a derogation review up for appeal or up for application every 4 years, and now we've gone to the stage that we're getting into this 2-year review?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even cap funding, that a lot of the measures in the generation renewal report are signalling. It's a 5-year cap plan, not starting until 2028. But who knows? There could be a really applicable scheme to your system of farming in 2028, and by 2033 it's gone. But your business plan is torn up and torn to shreds then by that. So we need to get into a system where we can do long-term planning, because that's what young people need. They need to have security of what their farm is going to be capable of doing, the income that it's capable of generating, and they need that on a much more longer-term basis.
Finally, Denis, the Taoiseach is not far from the Agriland stand here in Ploughing at the moment. And we have talked about what the Minister for Agriculture should do, but I suppose at the end of the day, he is one of many around a cabinet table that has to fight for his corner. But if you had the ear of Micheál Martin, the Taoiseach, who might come in the door in a minute, and you got to tell him something, what would you impress upon him?
Well, we actually had a very good meeting with him this morning on our own stand.
There you go.
He called to our stand, and look, from a dairy farmer organisation and also from a beef farmer organisation, we need the herd that we have at the moment. If we lose the derogation, not alone do we lose probably a huge raft of smaller farmers, because the derogation is not all people who have 300 and 400 cows and it could cut back by 10 or 15 or 20% and still be viable. Like, if you look at the average herd size in Ireland at 92 cows, that means there's way more than half of the herds less than 92 cows. And for somebody milking 50, 60, 70, 80 cows, if derogation goes, their farm is probably no longer viable. So that's probably number one priority. Like, we have double standards then coming with Mercursor is a huge issue. We have the reduction in the cap budget. And TB is obviously a massive issue as well.
And what sort of response did you get from him earlier?
Well, he said like that nitrates is his number one priority, that when he goes to Europe, in particular when he's talking to Ursula von der Leyen, they can't go with a suite of 10 wish lists. It has to be more specific, and the derogation, and I suppose the loss of our competitive advantage, because we have a huge advantage over most of the world, probably except New Zealand, in the amount of grass that we can grow and how cheaply and sustainably and environmentally friendly way that we can produce grass to either produce lamb, beef or dairy. And I mean, we're going to end up in a situation, if we lose the derogation, that we're going to have more grass than the number of cows that we have can eat. And that's really losing our competitive advantage. I mean, if you break down the figures, cows, don't want to get too technical, cow eats about 4.5 tonne of grass. We can probably go 13.5 comfortably. We can be stocked at 3 cows to the hectare. Derogation goes, we're down to about 1.6.
Yeah,
so
that's a big change.
It's really stark, like that our competitive advantage over all the indoor systems in the world is going to be decimated. And what will happen? What we produce, or what we will fail to produce, will be produced by far less sustainable measures.
Well, Denis Drennan, President of the ICMSA, thank you very much for joining us at the Agriland stand here at Ploughing 2025.